For all those who kindly prayed for my newborn niece, Adelaide, I just wanted to let you know that she made it out of the hospital last week and is in perfect health. When we heard she had 2 holes in her lungs, which have since miraculously healed, I promised I would do a 30-mile pilgrimage in Thanksgiving if she made it out of the hospital. Well, Our Lady heard our prayers, and never have I had a more joyous occasion for a pilgrimage. I chose to walk to the beautiful Basilica of Our Lady of Victory in Lackawanna, New York, built by the great Venerable Father Baker. Having spent some time now in the Buffalo area, everyone has been telling me some incredible stories about Father Baker and his cause for canonization, so I decided to research him for myself and bought a couple of books about him. But the best summary of his beautiful life can be found on fatherbaker.org, and I'll be putting a link to the full article in the description below.
The Catholic Men's Podcast, helping you find good works of literature for the Catholic gentleman. So it's really late at night right now. I couldn't sleep, and I don't think Griffin could either, because we're just thinking about tomorrow's pilgrimage and how much clothes I'm going to wear because it's going to be 28 degrees and it's in the middle of March.
Just to be clear, this is sleet or snow or something. This one's gnarly.
So I thought I might as well tell you the story of Father Baker tonight. Nelson Henry Baker was born on February 16th, 1841. He was the second of 4 sons born to Louis and Caroline. At birth, Father Baker was baptized in the Lutheran faith, the faith of his father. When Nelson was 10 years old, under the spiritual influence of his devout Catholic mother, he was rebaptized in the Catholic Church. As a child, Nelson loved to accompany his mother to Mass. The family lived behind their grocery and general store in the small but growing city of Buffalo, New York. After graduating from high school, Nelson joined his father and older brother working in the store, but then the American Civil War broke out, and he enlisted for a brief stint in the 74th New York Regiment. Once he had safely returned home in 1863, Nelson settled into his old routine, working in his father's store. At that point, he was 21 years old and had often considered the priesthood. The turning point in his life occurred one day as he was on the road returning from a buying trip. He came upon 2 boys carrying a heavy sack, and he stopped his wagon to ask them where they were headed. "Limestone Hill, St. Joseph's Orphanage," they replied, and Nelson readily agreed to bring the boys to their home. While there, he stopped in to see his friend, Father Hines, the administrator. One thing led to another, and before the visit ended, Father Hines promised to recommend Nelson to the bishop for admission to the diocesan seminary. So we started out at 5 in the morning. Griffin seems to be in very high spirits. That's 1 mile down, 29 more to go. Are those deer? Wow, they're so tame. That's crazy. While studying for the priesthood in the year 1874, Nelson read about a pilgrimage to some of the great Catholic shrines of Europe. He approached the seminary rector with the possibility of going at his own expense as the representative of his seminary. Permission was granted, and Nelson left in May. One of the several shrines on the agenda of the pilgrims was that of Our Lady of Victories in Paris. There, Nelson felt a special tug on his heart during Mass. Although the pilgrims later visited Lourdes and the Eternal City of Rome, his mind kept returning to the wonderful shrine in Paris and the possibility of honoring Our Lady in the same way in America. On the Feast of St. Joseph's, March 19, 1879, Nelson Baker became a priest of God at St. Joseph's Cathedral in Buffalo. He was appointed assistant superintendent of St. Joseph's Orphanage under his friend Father Hines, back where it all began. When Father Baker arrived in 1876, the Protectory and the Orphan Asylum had a combined debt of $27,000. By 1881, the debt had risen to more than $60,000, an impossible sum in those days. The bishop wanted Nelson there because of his sharp business sense, and he certainly chose the right man for the job. After a series of terrible reversals, Father Baker finally formed the Association of Our Lady of Victory, a fundraising initiative that would transform his organization forever. He sat down every evening and hand-wrote hundreds of letters to postmasters all over the country, asking them to send him names of charitable Catholic women in their cities and towns. As these names came in, he wrote these ladies, appealing to their sense of charity on behalf of the boys in his care, and this effort was an unqualified success. In a few years' time, not only did he pay off his debts, but he was able to begin various much-needed building projects. And now we come to my favorite part of his story, what people called Father Baker's Folly. During the early 1890s, natural gas had been discovered throughout the Buffalo area and across the border in Canada. Late one evening, as Father Baker sat in his office, paying the enormous heating bills for his growing institutions, his thoughts turned to the possibility of drilling for gas on the property. According to local experts, the natural gas supply in the area was limited. As usual, when he had to make a major decision or needed a favor, he spent the night in prayer before the statue of Our Lady of Victory that he had brought with him from France. After some days of praying in this manner, he approached the bishop about the idea and to seek a loan to start the project. Recalling that Father Baker had many times seemed to pluck money out of thin air, His Excellency reluctantly agreed. When the drillers arrived with their equipment, they wondered where they were supposed to start drilling. His team was amazed when a huge procession of altar boys, sisters, and brothers exited the church with Father Baker, carrying candles and praying the rosary. They processed into an open field until the priest stopped, sprinkled the ground with holy water, took a small statue of Our Lady out of his pocket, dug a hole in the ground, buried the statue, and told the workers, "Drill here, but try not to disturb the statue." Several days later, the project had yet to bear any fruit. Residents of Limestone Hill began to refer to the drill as Father Baker's Folly. Money was running out, and Father Baker had to approach the bishop once more. Bishop Ryan agreed to provide him with additional funding, and at an unheard-of depth of 1,137 feet, the well, dubbed Victoria Well, came in. The pool struck that day yielded enough natural gas to heat all of Father Baker's buildings, provide gas for cooking, and to even heat the homes of about 50 families nearby. Amazingly, the well is still producing today. But his conquest for the Lord didn't end there. One day, Father Baker read in the newspaper that a nearby section of the Erie Canal had been dredged in order to deepen it. During the process, workers found the bones and bodies of infants and small children. The supposition was that unmarried women who had given birth and who had been banished in disgrace from their homes threw their newborns into the canal. Horrified and called to immediate action, Father Baker set his will to a new project. Our Lady of Victory's infant home would provide a sanctuary for unwed mothers and their babies. Anyone was welcome, and no questions were asked. After it was completed, it was almost immediately filled to capacity. Father Baker's nightly rounds always ended at the infant home, where he was often found tucking in little ones, blessing them on his way out the door.
Sometimes a little harmonica playing can really help when your knees start hurting. There it is. Almost there.
He had often dreamed of a fitting tribute to his patroness, Our Lady of Victory. His parish had grown, and the church was unable to hold the thousands who flocked to his masses. Each time he thought he could begin, some emergency arose, or a new building project took precedence, and an expansion of the existing church was delayed. At last, in 1921, when Father Baker was 79 years old, he felt he could finally begin. To help finance the project, Father Baker turned to his beloved association of Our Lady of Victory and its charitable members, now numbering in the thousands. The magnificent church was finally completed by May of 1926, and true to Father Baker's word, not a nickel was owed on it. The exterior of the basilica is constructed almost entirely of white marble. You can find 46 different types and colors of Italian marble both inside and outside this jewel of American history. Perhaps the most prominent feature of the basilica is its huge copper dome, surrounded by 4 copper angels, each 18 feet tall, sounding their trumpets in all 4 directions of the compass. The focal point of the main altar is a 9-foot marble statue of the Blessed Mother, which was personally blessed by Pope Pius XI before being shipped to the United States. Measuring 80 feet in diameter and close to 120 feet from the floor, the painting of the Assumption and Coronation of the Blessed Mother is a true masterpiece. Actually, a friend told me something incredible about one particular station of the cross in the Basilica where Jesus meets his sorrowful mother. This station held special meaning for Father Baker, and he could often be found in front of the sculpture, contemplating the powerful and emotional scene. To this day, there's even an indentation in the marble which shows where Father Baker frequently placed his hand, eventually wearing it away. His health had deteriorated during the first part of 1936, but his mind remained alert until he finally lapsed into a coma on July 29th. He breathed his last that morning while being blessed by Father Joseph A. Burke, an orphan raised by Father Baker himself, who would later go on to become Bishop of Buffalo. In 1987, Father Baker's cause for canonization began when he was named a servant of God by the Vatican. Those connected to his cause remain in close contact with Vatican officials and believe that someday soon, Father Baker will be named blessed. But now let's fast forward and see if I actually made it to the Basilica tomorrow.
It's pouring rain right now, but I made it to the Basilica, and now I'm heading back to my car. The whole pilgrimage is a round trip, so to the Basilica and then all the way back to your car. That makes 30 miles. And if you're seeing this video, that means that I made it. Thank you all so much for watching.
If you'd like to hear about St. Patrick's prophecies about the state of Ireland right now, just click on the link above me here. God bless you, and Our Lady keep you.